Mulvihill. I'm the digitalisation lead at Siemens in Ireland, and I just want to thank you all so much for joining us today for the Building Digital Transformation into Your Business Strategy leadership discussion. We have some absolutely phenomenal leaders with us today, so I know this is going to be a wonderful chat. And we want to make sure that you join us in that chat and join the conversation online, on Twitter and on Facebook at Business Show IRL, and be sure to use the hashtag Rebooting Ireland. So without further ado, I am going to kick on. We have 25 minutes to get as much brilliant insights out of these three great panelists as we can. So I'm going to start by introducing them just by their names, and then I want to call on each of them to really give their own bio so that we can all get nicely warmed up this morning. So I say, I'm Joan Mulvihill, and I am joined by Brian Kennedy from Expleo, Caroline Lennon from Air, and Susan Spence from Softco. So I'm going to start with Susan. We're going to work backwards around that group. And if you could just give us maybe one or two lines on who you are and your organization, just to get us all warmed up and everyone knows who's on this panel today. Susan.
Good morning, and Joan, thank you very much for inviting me. Appreciate it. I'm Susan Spence. I am co-founder of Softco, a mad Leeds United fan as well, me and Russell Crowe. We have, myself and Jim Coffey set up Softco 30 years ago. Now, given the title of what we're talking about today, over those 30 years, we've seen considerable change and lots of advancements in terms of digital transformation. We manufacture purchase-to-pay software, and that's really about helping finance teams manage their spend and manage their invoice processing. We've great customers, Primark, we have Patagonia and Finnish government, and Caroline, obviously we'd love to have you as well. And I would say to you that one common theme throughout everything we've done has been our customers. They've really helped us drive innovation. And if I was talking to my head of R&D, whilst he would say that he is the genius in Softco, he would actually more say our customers are the genius in Softco.
Well, that is a great intro, and clearly plugging is not out of the question. So, Brian, we're going to go to you next. Plug away.
Hi, Joan. It's great to be here today, and I suppose sharing the panel with such esteemed and successful leaders. So, my name is Brian Kennedy. I work for Expleo. I lead digital innovation. I've been in the role about 4 years, but I'm coming from an IT background, so I have a background of about 25 years in IT. In my last role, I was a regional CIO for a Korean construction manufacturer, so in Europe, Middle East, and Africa. So that kind of brought me into a lot of digital transformation. I've been in an IT role. I've been on that sort of journey for 30 years to a certain extent. So I spend a lot of time now working with clients on their digital transformation and on their innovation programs and trying to unlock creativity from within their organization. So a little bit about Expleo. So we provide end-to-end integrated engineering, quality and management consultancy for digital transformation. There's 15,000 of us across the globe in 30 countries, and we are, primarily across those three pillars: engineering, quality assurance and management consultancy. So a lot of work with, digital and product strategies, business and operating model change. We're helping build clients, their capabilities, and it's really their capabilities in automation, agility, innovation, cyber, cloud, anything to do with digital. A lot of work within programs, helping deliver programs, so whether or not they're internal programs, but also with clients' products and services and helping to bring them to market. So quite a wide variety of services and end-to-end from a digital transformation perspective.
Brilliant, thank you so much. And lots of great examples that we're going to be able to pull out of you in the next 25
Hopefully.
Our next panelist is Caroline Lennon, and I'm delighted to say that she is bringing you to me today because I have been successfully working from home on my Air broadband for the last year without a glitch. For my part and Siemens' part for keeping me online for the last year. Caroline, over to you.
Thanks, Joan. I'm delighted to hear that. I think I knew, so I'm, first of all, sorry, my name is Caroline Lennon. I'm the CEO of Air for the last 3 years. I've worked in Air for 10 years. First woman to lead Air, which I'm very proud of. And Air is the largest telecommunications company in the country, with a very wide and broad fiber network, and also our own kind of mobile network infrastructure. And I suppose, I always thought our job was important in terms of providing connectivity to the country and to Ireland. But when you see the importance of connectivity, particularly in the last 12 months, where, I suppose we kind of moved our whole lives online, whether it was our work, our education, socialization, our entertainment, and I suppose to have a role in facilitating that through our investments in networks and our continued ability to roll out networks during the pandemic was something I think that the team actually were really proud of in Air. I mean, some of our field guys who've worked here for a long time, since the telephone airing days, so wrote to me at the start of the pandemic and said they saw it was a matter of national pride to keep the network up during the pandemic so people could be facilitated to do what they had to do from home. So I'm delighted to be here. I haven't met Susan O'Brien before. I've met Joan before, so I'm looking forward to getting their insights and to hearing what they have to say about digitalized transformation.
Thank you so much. Thank you to the three of you. I mean, I think everyone will be definitely tuning in now, because I can tell from your collective experiences, this is going to be a great chat. In the last year, there has been no other strategy. It's kind of had to be digital strategy. I reflect back on my own days in the Irish Internet Association. We used to do a lot of training on digital marketing, and over time you realize there's no such thing as digital marketing. It's just marketing. It happens to be digital. Would you say, I'll start with you, Susan, would you say that's the same now in terms of when we talk about business strategy? Do we need to say digital strategy, or is it just business strategy?
I don't believe you can have one without the other, to be honest with you. And I think the one thing that we should keep in mind is that digital strategy is kind of not a thing. You see some organizations deploy digital strategy really badly, and then you get ones that deploy it really well. And one of the things I was thinking about was, for example, a source you wouldn't think about, which is the Finnish government. A few years ago, they said they announced their digital strategy, which was to save €1 billion through the implementation of a broad range digital strategy. Now, we were only one part of that, and our part was about automating 78 different government departments. Could you imagine it? Defence, justice, etc. It was quite a tall task. And when you're doing that, it was a 2-year time frame, and we delivered it in budget, on time. But more importantly, the reason it worked, I'd love to tell you, was because our software is fantastic and our people are brilliant. But the reason it actually worked was because the project manager, she was a woman called Kati Sokinen. She was absolutely brilliant, and she was supported by her management team. And the reason that digital strategy worked, and for a public sector organization, they met their targets, was because of the people involved. And I think that's something we don't always focus on.
I think, yeah, and I get that, and it's the need to move to digital. But I guess when I think about digital strategy, it's not about moving your stuff to digital and digitizing it. It is more, what's the value outcome that you're trying to achieve? So is it a digital strategy, or is it, what were the Finnish government trying to achieve? It wasn't to move to digital for the sake of it. It was about maybe getting efficiencies or greater transparency or accountability or reducing costs. So in that sense, I work in the area of digitalization, and we talk about digital transformation. But for me, it's always been transforming through digital rather than transforming to digital. And transforming to digital, you will get some benefits from that, but you need to start, I suppose, with those benefits in mind. Brian, you alluded to some customers that you've worked with in that journey. Would you say that's a fair representation when we talk about digital strategy, the ones that work, the ones that focus on the value outcome?
Yeah, 100%. And I also agree with the strategy piece that, the digital strategy is now the business strategy. So when I consider digital transformation, it's not necessarily around the technology. For me, digital transformation is building that business capability that allows you to leverage the latest technology. So the technologies will change all the time, and the speed of that change is actually accelerating. So it is building that capability within the organization to allow you to leverage the technology. And as Susan said, a huge amount of that is definitely the people and the competencies and their ways of working, and how you get them to work in new sort of ways and in simpler sort of ways to generate value as quickly as possible. And ideally, learn and experiment actually very, very quickly. Will this work for us, or will this not work for us? And then move to the next stage. So it's not a case of changing all your BAU activities, like they need to go on in the background. It's that building that sort of capability within the organization that allows you to leverage the latest technology, because the technologies are changing all the time. And when you think about it from a digital strategy perspective, you need to think about, the areas of strategy that have been transformed by digital. transform and digital technology. So you need to be thinking about your customers differently. You need to be thinking about competition differently. So when you're actually dealing with your strategy, you need to be thinking about data differently. You know, customers have changed so much, and it's great to hear Susan mention it as well. You know, their customers are a key part of their journey and their innovation. And so how do you tap into that, but also understanding customer networks, you know, understanding their new paths to purchase, you know, their digital behaviors that have been changed and their expectations. So there's a huge amount, but digital is just the enabler. Technology is the enabler. Digital transformation, you know, is about building that business capability. It's a journey, you know, and we actually, I think digital transformation probably really started about 30 years ago, nearly early 90s, when we started networking and connecting more powerful personal computers together, and then we had the internet, etc. So I think we've been on this journey. It's just accelerated, you know, and now this journey is a key part of a business strategy. The business strategy there's a huge digital element to it.
I think, Caroline, you've probably been on that, or Air has certainly been on that journey for longer than most, in that underlying infrastructure. And certainly you would have witnessed, I'm sure, a lot of change in the last 12 months as businesses have had to move more online. Can you tell us a little bit about your experience of that and how Irish businesses have been responding?
Yeah, so it's certainly, I mean, we estimate that about 4 billion euros of online orders went over the Air network last year. So, you know, and that was, you know, businesses who were, you know, had a retail presence, you know, getting themselves ready to interact online using capability, communicating with their customers to let them know they could do that. So we saw massive transformation, and I love looking at some of the individual kind of customers. The great customers of ours, you know, in Skerries, and they're a hardware store and a pet center. Now they were kind of on this journey in advance, in terms of they were, you know, they had a good online presence, they had a good online sort of retail offering, and they were communicating a lot with their customers in terms of true online marketing as well. But of course, when the pandemic hit, they were able to really dig into that and keep their business going across you know, the last 12 months. So we've seen that. But also, I agree with what both Susan and Brian said. In the past, I think people talked about digital, but what they were really talking about was adding on maybe a digital channel, or, you know, doing some digital marketing. But I think you're right, it's about starting with the objective. So if I'll give an example of one of our examples from 2019. So we wanted to do something disruptive in the mobile market. We were the third player. We wanted to get some market share, but we needed to be able to make a commercial case. So we decided to launch GoMo. But if we'd done it the traditional way, and all the other mobile had their, you know, their contact centers, their retail presence, we'd done all that, there was no way we could offer the value and the simplicity that we wanted to offer to our customers in terms of no limits. So we kind of started with the essence of simplicity, and then said, we're going to do this in a digital only world. We're just going to have, you know, digital sales, we're just going to have digital marketing, we're just going to have digital care. And if we can get the proposition right and simple enough, you know, that will work for customers. So we kind of started with the objective, and then said, can we deliver that in a digital way? And, you know, in 15 months, we got 250,000 customers. We took 4% of the mobile market in 12 months, you know, and it's profitable for us. So I think we started with the objective, and then said, well, how do we facilitate it? You know, but simplicity as well was key, because I think another thing that, and we see companies do it all the time, and we've done it ourselves, they try to take what they currently have, that offering, and move it into a kind of a digital world, and it never works.
And that's,
it's not designed to be like that. The processes weren't built like that. You've got to start with that simplification, start with the customer. What are you trying to do? And then what does it look like in a digital world? You know, trying to take your offline stuff online, in my experience, you don't deliver for anyone. No one's happy in that world.
Well, I think the other thing too is that the real benefits are not really, they're never going to be reached. You're just automating a process that was fundamentally flawed, maybe. So it's really about the opportunity that digital gives us to maybe make some real step change, or have watershed moments of totally transforming our business. So you referenced something there that made me think of a discussion I've been having earlier in the week around a recent interview and Alex Osterwelder's newest book, The Invincible Company. And he talked about 3 types of innovation: the kind of innovation that is efficiency innovation. So, you know, we're going to have a digital strategy that makes us more efficient, that level of innovation. Then you've got the sustaining one, which is we're going to bring out a new model, a new version, and that keeps you competitive. And then there's the really transformative innovation. And that's the kind of stuff that digital can really help you achieve. But one of the things that I think all of you have referenced is that the importance of putting a culture and an organization around that. But there's no shortage of wonderful ideas, and there's no limits to the capacity of technology to deliver on those ideas. But one of the things that's really important to make that happen is having an organization around that can deliver projects the way Susan was talking about, with speed and with precision, and an organization that has the governance for that kind of driving through that change, like you guys did with Gomo. Susan, I know you guys have had you brought out new product in the last year. You've been very innovative. Would you agree with this whole bit around it's not just the technology, it's the organization? And what advice, I suppose, would you give people listening into today to help realize those kind of ambitions, that kind of innovation?
Well, look, it's really important to constantly innovate. I mean, being in business so long, I would say to you that we've had probably 5 different businesses over the years. We've changed, and much of that change has been customer driven. Others have been environmental. So, for example, 10 years ago, I would have said to you, the majority of our customers had our software in a computer in their building, where the majority of our customers today are cloud-based. And the reason for that is, and actually, if you look at Microsoft's figures, they've all gone up because of the demand for cloud. So cloud has become, you have to have it. So that's something that has been driven a little bit by us, but very much so by external forces. But if you don't constantly invest, and if you don't constantly think about what are we going to do, but always with the eye on the customer. So we've seen some of our retail customers like Patagonia with fantastic front-end systems. If you want to buy one of their products, absolutely brilliant. But then the pandemic hit and they're going, how do we find our invoices? How do we see our invoices? That part of the business, which can sound a little bit boring, but absolutely vital to maintain cash flow. Now what we're seeing is that part of the business is becoming as cool and sexy as the front end of the business.
I think that's always been a challenge with e-commerce. Again, drawing on my previous life, when I was in the Irish Internet Association, there was a lot of businesses, the challenge was not setting up the e-commerce website. The challenge was dealing with the fulfillment and the back end and that heavy lifting in terms of strategy. And again, this comes back to the point of digital strategy. It's a business strategy. And that means all part of the business, not just your shop front. Brian, you'd have experience of that with working with customers.
Yeah, and I mean, sorry, Joan, do you want to go ahead there?
Oh, please do.
I was more thinking of it, that it's not just the technology that's changing, it's the business model that needs to change to support whatever you're bringing to the market, and that's very transformational. I think there's a huge emphasis, I think what COVID has demonstrated, so if you want an advantage of COVID, it's demonstrated that organizations can innovate and change very, very quickly. So there's a level of confidence now, said actually we had to change. Crisis was the mother of all invention. And it was, as Caroline said, maybe there's an element around the whole customers, move dramatically to online channels. So therefore, businesses had to follow, and they managed to do it. The first one was obviously the remote working piece, but organizations got there, so when it had to happen, so how can we actually use, I suppose, an element, I wouldn't say enthusiasm, but a momentum that we have and continue it, because it is so important, as Susan said, we all need to be innovating, and there's an element of innovation, that's coming from top down, which could be linked into your strategy. But one of my messages today is, don't forget about your own people, again, that Susan has mentioned. They are such a source of creativity and ideas. So if you're looking to create be successful in digital transformation, and you're looking to, to create that sort of culture of innovation, you really have to take a bottom-up approach from an innovation perspective, as well as the top-down piece. So how do you, tap into their ideas? And clients are starting to do that. They're starting to run these ideation sessions. They're starting to understand, and create the environment that allows people, to feel safe, to be encouraged, to come up with ideas, and to be rewarded and recognized when they do that. And they don't necessarily are going to be lumbered with actually then having to bring them to reality. You have that sort of that innovative and that agile part of the organization that can do that can quickly build prototypes. And really what you're trying to figure out is, okay, we have an idea, what's the value of this idea, and how quickly can we establish whether or not it's going to work? So it's a case of, as Susan said again, Talk to your customers. Don't suddenly go all down the road and start building solutions. Talk to your customers. Does this meet their need? Or even better, does it meet an unmet need? Then what's the size of the market? And at the same time, you're prototyping. You're trying to figure, and you're using all that feedback all the time, bringing it back into the solution and how are you going to bring it to market. But you're building confidence in that whenever we bring a new product to market, we know it's going to work because we've totally engaged with customers. We know the market size. Let's just go do it. I'm trying to do that within, 3 months, 6-month window rather than 2-3 years, where it might take to launch a big product. That's a huge piece. So that's more about a new way of working and your people rather than the technology. So it's building those sort of competencies into the organization.
Yeah, Brian, that's a really great point. And but obviously this is for the business show, and we've got so many business leaders here. It's not just about the technology. A huge amount of it is about the people too. And we talk a lot about large organizations are very difficult to change direction. I think of that large ship that's stuck in the Suez Canal, wedged between two sides, and all these little tugboats coming together to dislodge it, to move it. Caroline, yours is a very large organization, like Siemens, where I work myself. And we have this perception it's going to be hard to make change happen. And yet a pandemic comes along and suddenly it is possible. It is possible when everybody is energized and driven to achieve that. And it's not been the technology that's held us back. How do you see that, Caroline, has been your experience in AIR over the last months?
So I think it's definitely accelerated in the last 12 months, but I think we were on that transformation journey before that. I mean, if you look at our IT team now, it's unrecognizable from the AIR IT teams in the past. And it's led by a young guy in his 30s who came up from within the organization. And they are building a new IT stack for us. We never would have contemplated doing that ourselves. Goma was the first product we launched on an IT stack. They use an agile model. We have new code dropping every month. So if it's wrong or we want to change it or what we're so flexible. Like in my early days in AIR, you had 2 drops every 6 months, and God love you if you got it wrong, because it was another 6 months before you could do anything else or whatever, so it's completely different. And people are really excited by that. In the same way, our field engineers were so proud of keeping the network up. Our IT guys, in terms of building Gomo from scratch on an IT stack that they developed in Dublin in-house, they were just blown away with the sort of pride of that. So yeah, I mean, it's just unrecognizable from what it was. And we're moving all of our product sets onto our stack, and we'll continue that. And it also means it's a great place to work for IT professionals, because you get to do a lot of cool stuff and work with a lot of new open source technologies that maybe in the past you wouldn't. But also, it's back to something Brian said about how people have changed. We've seen 3 million video calls a day on the AIR network. In the past, if someone ever rang me for a video call, I nearly drop the phone and think, like, weirdo, who wants to, whatever. And now 3 million calls a day over the network. We've all just adapted and got on with it. People's ability to change and transform is astonishing. I think it's been one of the really positive things that have come out of this pandemic. Our ability to adapt, it's fantastic.
Yeah. And their creativity, I think, the creativity is unbelievable. Like if you look at, especially in larger organizations, like there's thousands of years of experience there. So how do you, and like, I've been in organizations and even myself said, this is really frustrating me. Why don't we do something about this? And you need to create a sort of an innovation framework and a culture where being able to say that, and then something happens if you got an idea in a certain, and if there's value in it, and that you quickly determine this, then that proceeds, so, and you learn, does this work? And you're not sure, okay, well, we test a little bit, does that bit work? Okay, let's move to the next stage. It didn't work, okay, well, let's drop it. We didn't spend 6 months doing it. So it's just a new way of working, and it doesn't have to impact on your normal business as usual activities. Some people seem to think, oh, we have to all transform. So
I think we have to, I want to recognize this idea that obviously strategy is moving much faster, and our ability to adapt very quickly. I'm going to say, ironically, speaking of adapting very quickly, that time has just flown by, and I have got to cut off this conversation, which is kind of breaking my heart a little bit, but I think it has been really rich in terms of, I just want to thank you all for sharing your experiences over the last 25 minutes and your experiences over the last 30 years for all of you who are in business. But I think one of the things that we have established very much is digital strategy, it's business strategy, and it's not about the digital and the technology as much as it is also about the people, the culture, the creativity, the drive for excellence, and all of the excitement that goes with that. And I think the technology is just empowering and enabling us to achieve so much more. So thank you so much for responding to the call to join us here today, for giving your time to this conversation and to sharing that with everybody who's listening in today. So thank you all very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Joan. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you.